Listen up.
Welcome to the PowerShell Podcast, the podcast for PowerShell and the PowerShell community. And now, here's your host, Andrew Plaw.
Oh my gosh, is that you? Welcome to another episode of the PowerShell Podcast. I am your host, Andrew Plaw. That is at Andrew Plaw Tech on all socials. You know the deal. And we're here again. Oh my goodness, it's a Monday. Podcast is dropping. And we have a very special guest, someone who I almost interviewed last week, but the stars misaligned and unfortunately it didn't happen. But fresh off the heels of presenting at MMS MOA, Hailey Phillips recently inducted into the Microsoft MVP for PowerShell and Intune, a professional Pokemon trainer, and someone who honestly, it's just been such a pleasure to watch her rise over the past year and a half, 2 years since I've kind of been introduced to her. And I'm so glad that I can properly introduce you to our audience. Hailey, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me, Andrew.
You know, we talked once before. It was in passing. It was a bar session. Lost to the eons. If people find it, maybe they do. But I really wanted to get you on for a proper interview where we can sit down, chillax a little bit, dive into some stuff. And you picked some pretty good topics that you want to cover today. But first, we got to talk about some easy wins because you just today dropped a new project on us. Can you tell us about IntuneStack? Because I was checking Twitter and I was like, wait, what? I asked you what you wanted to talk about in the pod. This wasn't on it. Is this fresh? What the heck? So what's IntuneStack?
Yeah, so IntuneStack, one of the things that I have run into just being in the space of traditional systems engineering is it's always been really difficult to adopt DevOps mindsets because it always felt like I needed to have 3 different environments. And I mean, I don't have the cash flow to have, multiple environments. I know that most companies don't either. And so my coworker had mentioned to me probably 6 months ago, he was like, when you think about dev test prod, it's really just containers. It's really just, it can be anything. And production is the last thing you deploy to. And I got really sick of having these one-off policies in Intune and trying to figure out exactly where the issue was. So say it's not policy's not installing on a device, say that the device is hasn't checked in. There's all of these different ways that the device can report back to Intune. But the best part is with the Graph API, you have access to all of that information. And so IntuneStack is a way that when you put a policy into your environment, you can now deploy from dev, test, prod, entra groups, whether that's a device group or a user group, and you can set quality gates. So determining whether or not it needs to meet 80% success criteria or 95 or what have you. And you can also set it as a cron job. And so now you have a full CI/CD pipeline that's going to deploy through your environment. And now you know that you have standardization in your Intune environment. And then you can finally focus on everything else and bridging the gap between systems engineering and traditional DevOps practices.
Okay, so that is very interesting. And I think to make changes, you want to have confidence in the process behind it. And I think that's exactly what you're doing, kind of applied in a way that I really haven't heard quite as much. It's kind of like unit testing, right, to approve this policy, except it's actually on whatever grouping of devices you decide to kind of meet your criteria. And then I guess as it goes through, then you can, I guess, maybe add additional checks too if you wanted to do some kind of other things, or is it just checking devices that are deployed?
Yeah, so in this specific scenario, because these policies are deploying to devices, it's checking the success criteria of that policy on devices. You can also change that to whatever methodology you need, but it's more, I wanted to release it to kind of show a pattern that people could follow, because most of the times that I would see ways that you could have, ring-based deployment, whether that's in Azure, whether that's, on-prem, anything to that extent, it never was this specific area. And I noticed that when I was trying to encourage people to start doing infrastructure as code, they kept getting stuck on, well, I have my Intune environment and it's just such a mess. And, my service desk is going in there and they're doing something in the environment and it's all ClickOps. And how do I make sure that I have consistency? And then you mentioned something that reminded me, this is also part of why it took me so long to post this. I've been working on it for a long time. each time that you run the pipeline, it does create an artifact. And so now you finally have something that you can validate against, and you don't have to worry about, any sort of like storage. You can upload that wherever you want. And now you have something that you can trust and gets to be your source of truth instead of whatever tool you're using. In this case, Intune.
So you input something, a policy, it runs through all your devices, and it comes out the other end. You have an artifact that is now your kind of source of truth. It's gone through your validation, your testing. You can feel somewhat confident, right, based on the criteria you've set, that you can then go forward with it. And then, boom, you're ready to go, I guess.
Yep. Yeah, this is just the beginning. I mean, I started off with policies because that was the easiest thing to do. I didn't really want to spend time with apps. I don't really like app packaging and pay companies to do that because there's so many great tools out there. But started with app policies just because that seemed to be the kind of easiest win, the easiest thing that people can conceptualize. And then wrote it all in PowerShell as well so that other people can kind of see the methodology that I was using, so that way they can jump in as well.
Holy smokes, you are cooking. Gosh. Wow, this is pretty elaborate. Is this the biggest project you've ever worked on? Because this seems pretty big.
Yeah, this is probably the biggest project that I've worked on. And I really was inspired at PowerShell DevOps Summit. There's just so many heavy hitters in the space who've just done such great work. And at first, I kind of let that intimidate me and just feel as though, okay, I need to be on their level in order to be able to release something to the community. But at the end of the day, the whole point is so that the community can also be involved with me. Like, this isn't for me, this is for others. And I really just want to see us starting to like turn the tides of having a more granular way that we manage things, and we all do it together.
That's sick. That's awesome. I'm so glad that you could release it today and share it here with others. Already has 7 stars, so off to a pretty solid start. You can check the show notes for a full link to this. Your GitHub username is always hype. That's your username in a whole bunch of places though, right?
Yep. Same username everywhere. So yeah. Perfect.
Well, that is really awesome. Gosh. When did you think about, I know you mentioned you got inspired at PowerShell and DevOps Global Summit, but when did you actually like start putting together the pieces in your head of doing this? Did you already have done this at work and you're just like, let me take what we've done, kind of generalize it and share it?
So I did a little bit of it at work, but one of the things that I just get really sick of doing the same thing over and over and over again. And it gets really frustrating because I like to be able to give people the answers that they can trust in. And so when you have an environment that is kind of piecemeal together and it's like ClickOps and trying to figure out drift detection, and those were all things that I just felt like I didn't have. And once I started getting more comfortable with the graph, and also Maester, the testing framework for Entra that Meryl and Sam Erdy are stewarding, that really kind of got off the ground where I thought, oh, this is a framework that I could do. I could use Pester to like also confirm and make sure that when some of these like on my service desk is doing a pull request and making a change, it's validating against everything else that I have. How nice that I can finally like walk away from this. And I've been working on it for a while, probably this whole year, but I really kind of thought to do more with it when I went to Gail and Raymond's session at PowerShell DevOps Summit, where they were showing how they were using DSC in M365. And the weekend before, I had been working with some Terraform and I had built out a whole environment. And I just kind of thought to myself, like, why would I do this? All I did is lift and shift. I mean, yes, I'm reusing my PowerShell scripts, but if it's not automated, what did I actually save myself? Like, it needs to be all the way through. I shouldn't have to touch this again, because if I have to touch it again, then I removed all of that trust because I don't have an artifact that's consistent throughout the entire pipeline. So at the end of their session, that's when Gail made the comment, like, if you're not going to do full automation and do it end to end, then don't start at all. And I mean, I'm kind of taking him slightly out of context, but the point of it is not having, a half-baked PowerShell script that like you constantly are doing something with it and changing it and tweaking it. So when I started working on this project, I could have spent a lot more time and make sure that I'm using invoke REST method and, there's so much more I could do. But instead I thought, you know what, one PowerShell module, easy to install, Microsoft.graph.authentication, and then I can use OIDC connection. So that way, like I don't have to worry about any secrets, and then just have this policy go through my entire environment and I can trust it at every point because I haven't touched it. So that was really where the inspiration came from, is making sure that I'm demonstrating value to my team, to the organization, and a huge part of it is just like, this is the first step of building reliability and scalability.
And you've shared it with the world. You get those personal wins at work, and then you get to share it with the world, and hopefully maybe somebody will make it even better and think of some angle you didn't consider, or they have something that they use it for that they can generalize and all of a sudden help out a whole bunch of other people, which is, I think, one of the really cool things about doing public stuff. And it's really cool to see this project launch, and I hope other people can learn from it, that when you do something at work that you have to solve by yourself and you're not using another project, it might be a fantastic opportunity to share that with others. So really cool that you've done that here. I'm curious to see where this ends up. I mean, I see you got a pretty nice little module setup. You got VS Code folder, GitHub workflows. So a little bit of a PowerShell nerd for sure.
I was planning on not releasing this until I actually published it as a PowerShell module to the gallery. But then I just kind of thought, you know what? At this point, I'll just have it like this. People can get started. I'll turn it into a module, and I'm probably, my biggest personal flaw is I have kind of a all or nothing mindset, that I'm like, oh, I start now and it has to be at the final state. And I'm constantly trying to challenge myself with DevOps and being actually agile, and just, nope, we can just do iterative things and do small little wins over and over and over again. So
if I could make one piece of advice on this repo, I think it would be cool if you had a couple issues and maybe some easier ones that were flagged, good for beginner or whatever flag they have for noobs.
Oh, sure.
It might help get things rolling for some people.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. No, I'm all open to suggestions. This is my first real community tool, I guess.
No, it's so sweet to see, and great documentation as well. Even had diagrams to show the different steps of the process. Pretty sweet.
Yeah. No, that's the documentation, I would say, is probably the biggest thing. Is I don't like releasing things that people don't know how to get started. And I want somebody to be able to feel as though they can get started and know exactly what to do and where to put variables. Documentation is a big passion.
Which is pretty wise, right? Save yourself a lot of work. Similar to what you're kind of talking about here with automating. If you're not going to document it, don't do anything that is going to need to be seen in the future, right? Because you're going to lose it. Same thing with creating PowerShell the proper way in your automations. And, I think you've mentioned a little bit of adding some DevOps into what we're doing over here. And I think you've done that in a pretty solid way. I want to ask a question just in case anyone out there has it. So you mentioned if you have a script and just running it, it's not really great because you have to run it. You need something like an orchestrator or a CI/CD pipeline kind of thing. Which CI/CD pipeline are you using here?
Oh, I'm using a GitHub Actions.
Oh, cool. So it's tied to a GitHub thing. That's cool.
Yeah. I was talking to some folks at MMS, and they were talking about some of the additional orchestration functionality that Azure DevOps has, and Azure DevOps can make a call to a GitHub repo. So that's another, fun side project that I'm going to go down and kind of see how I can leverage that and kind of give people additional use cases and how they could bring better value to their business.
Heck yeah. And have fun while doing it, right? Make your job easier.
Yeah.
Straight up.
Yeah, exactly.
More time to listen to music and kind of they'll do a little bit of work here.
Yeah, exactly. It's I'm just so sick of putting documentation in 500 million places, where if it's in one place, I mean, that's what's so great about, using Git. It's everything. It's your documentation. It's your, it's your source of truth. And so it's so helpful to finally have it in just one place.
And if you're listening out there, you're like, oh, Git, I keep hearing about this. I need to learn it. Just get it installed and start using it at the very least. Start Git cloning stuff. And then, oh my gosh, you can get in it in a folder and do your own thing and kind of create some stuff. There's really simple guides to get started. And all of a sudden you can be so close to taking your next step of imagine how much harder this would have been, Hailey, if you've never used Git before. And now you have to learn Git and publish a module and do all this other stuff. it's going to be a non-starter. You got to take those easy wins and kind of like math class, like, one lesson at a time, you can get pretty far.
Yeah. Not to tease another thing I'm working on, but I guess have too much time on my hands. But Git was really, really overwhelming for me and stressful, especially because most of the examples that you would have of Git had to do with, huge Python code bases and it just felt as though it was not applicable to me. So again, with the kind of bridging this traditional systems engineering into DevOps, is I see an opportunity in this space for folks that are trying to make that leap and trying to get cloud native and trying to figure out like, oh my gosh, how do I move from pets to cattle? And I am working on a project. We'll have a whole YouTube series as well of how to do DevOps for someone who's like managing Config Manager or Intune and having a translation key of like, if this is what you're doing in Intune, this is the Git equivalent. And, here's how to map it all out and like do it week by week together as we build out a project.
Nice.
Yeah,
Awesome.
Yeah. So, and with the Git element, I just save my notes. That's how I start getting comfortable with it and getting comfortable with breaking it is start saving notes.
Yep. Absolutely critical if you're in your IT career and you need some way to consistently learn and like remember it, because you're going to be learning so much stuff might pop up in your life and you never look at this thing again for a couple months and you come back. That's absolutely the best way to start chipping at some of these things where even if you read it and write it down, maybe it hasn't fully clicked in, but maybe you do it like 2 or 3 times and it does. There's a lot of stuff like that in PowerShell for me where it's like, I can read all the words. No clue. We're talking about objects and all this stuff. I'm like, dude, I can only think of like one thing that I don't know in my head at a time. You're asking for like 16 pipelining, all this stuff. Yeah. Takes time.
Yeah, exactly.
So you just were at MMS having a good old time, a jolly time. You're MMS regular. I think was your first time speaking at MOA?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, my first time speaking was last year. I did a beer session with Adam Gross, and we were talking about Azure Arc and Azure Update Manager because it was a real world scenario that I was dealing with where I started to need to manage a multi-cloud environment. And just like most people who are probably listening to this, I don't have a huge team of people who are just hitting the ground running. And so when you have like, an extra 100 servers or whatever that you're like, oh, I have to patch these and I don't have time to sit here and babysit it. And so Azure Arc was really phenomenal for me to be able to finally, put the agent on these servers, be able to manage them as if they were native Azure VMs, start leveraging managed identities so I don't have to worry about any passwords or credentials at all, run automation jobs with an Azure automation account. So that was my first start. And it was fun to talk about something that, seemed so scary to me at first, and really just recognizing that we're all on a journey and it just takes, it takes all kinds. And sometimes some person will say something that in such a way that it really resonates with you. And, maybe you've heard it 50 times, but somebody gives some other example that it's like, oh, it clicks and the light bulb goes off. And then now that's your idea for your next project.
Absolutely. And that's why it's so helpful for advanced people, beginners, all different types of people to share your perspectives, because it might resonate with someone else who is maybe slightly more confused than you, but sees it in the similar way and they can make that next logical step. That's also why whenever I'm doing these podcasts and somebody gives a really accurate technical answer, I'll try and like break it down to absolute bare essentials of it. So someone can maybe follow along generally. But yeah, no, I think that's the challenge with IT is you can use PowerShell for so many different things where you might not be an expert in all the other domains that people are using PowerShell for, or even within PowerShell. You can get so much mileage out of PowerShell without diving into too many deeper things. That it's, not fair to assume that everybody has that knowledge. And that's one thing I've appreciated about you is you have always kind of created that space for people to be wherever they are and it to be a happy, comfortable thing, which is so critical for every community out there to have if you want to be healthy long-term.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you. I appreciate it. Like that's probably the most important thing for me is making sure that I'm providing a space where people can ask questions and kind of give examples because, it wasn't very long ago until I finally, bit the bullet and did PowerShell in a month of lunches and started working on projects because I've used PowerShell for years, but it was really just kind of piecemealing things that other people did. It was like one-liners. And, last year was when I really just thought, you know what, I'm going to sit down and really put some effort into this and really take the time. And it was scary when you're taking all that time to like automate something. You're like, oh gosh, I feel like so stressed. How do I like tell the business like, hey, I'm going to, be over here working on this script, but recognizing how really what we're doing for the business is providing value. And that value can be brought in so many different ways. And you don't want to be that bottleneck for them. So even if it's a one-liner, you're showing that like, okay, it's not just that I made this faster. I also brought stability. I brought consistency. I now brought scalability. Like those are all tangible metrics that you can measure. And those are great things to put on your performance review. And it's a great way to quiet that anxiety of like, oh gosh, I just don't know what I'm doing. Well, you'll figure it out. Everybody does. And if you don't figure it out, there's lots of us who can help.
Bingo. And I love that perspective because, I'm a nice person. I like being good to people. It makes me feel good. Not everyone's wired like that. Tell you what, maybe the leaders who are 10 teams removed from where you are, maybe you're a lot less connected to that reality as well. And they're more inspired by that bottom line. And automation, being a good teammate, even, creating a culture of sharing and collaboration, that leads to more productivity, more money. Good job. It helps to track this stuff and be aware that if I'm writing a script, it sure would be nice if I could measure generally how many times it's executing and saving us a task. You get a couple of those wins, and they're easy ones to have if you're not using any PowerShell. And all of a sudden you can carve out some time for yourself. You can develop that trust and start building those best practices and get to kind of where you sort of are now, where you're like automating full processes start to finish, like really taking big amounts of work off the table and just kind of focusing on the actual essentials of what you need to do your job, which is like the peak.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's funny because really the reason that I automate all of this is because, the tide of work that you have coming to you is just so huge. And how do you carve out that time for development for yourself and like growing? Well, this is how you start doing that. It's funny because I have a director at work who he's very, very wise, and he was an engineer for a long time. And with a lot of the talk about AI, I know that people are really nervous. And it reminds me of when PowerShell started becoming really popular 10 years ago. And everyone was like, I'm not going to have a job. And oh no, if I automate everything, what am I going to do? And it's like, you're not getting paid to write code. You're getting paid to think. You're getting paid to solve business problems. And so how you do that is up to you. And the more that you can demonstrate that you're comparing multiple competing priorities and you're doing what's best for the business, that is the intangible, well, not even intangible, it's tangible. That's why you're getting paid. It's not how great your PowerShell script is.
Yep. One thing I like to add to that is also true is you also get paid for your perspective, which doesn't mean you always have to share it. But if you have a perspective on things, it is kind of your responsibility to share it in the interest of better collaboration or maybe going the technical wrong way. Again, don't be too married to your idea. You can explain the pros and the cons, but you are absolutely paid for your perspective. So speak up when you can, and hopefully everyone feels safe enough to, but I know that that's absolutely not the case.
Yeah. Oh, totally. I've seen so many environments where that's not the case. And it's also that self-reflective piece of like, am I contributing to an environment that makes it feel safe for people to be wrong? And like, that's why I, keep going back to the like DevOps mindset of like fail fast, bring all the filtering to the left. And it's like, the best thing that we can do is, hey, let's all hypothesize, what do we want to do? Let's go through really quickly and make those decisions and see what's working and what's not. Should we have additional criteria that we didn't think about? And I think the best way to do that is to demonstrate through action and making yourself vulnerable, which usually opens up the space for other people to feel vulnerable and able to share their opinions and perspectives.
Absolutely. And I think that that's where reaching out to people who have maybe figured it out, maybe their orgs are a little farther ahead, they've gone through that process before, the community, that's what it's there for, is for you to not be gaslit, maybe have a dose of reality of like, hey, how you're going about approvals and getting things merged is like incredibly inefficient, and it's probably causing you a ton of pain, and it doesn't have to be that way. It's actually kind of like proven in the industry that that's the wrong way. But having that external voice, because so many people just accept the status quo. A lot of organizations, they're okay paying for like admins. It's up to you to kind of create that standard, whether it's automation focused, whether it's security focused. Like these are huge gaps in almost every single business out there, especially like non-enterprise.
Absolutely. Well, and also recognizing, like, because you made a great point of taking those industry best practices. So say, for instance, because, our economy is not great right now. And I know that like the big salaried jobs that are coming knocking on your door aren't really in existence right now. Well, you still get to build that muscle and still get to demonstrate the ways that you're making a difference. And you still get to like remind yourself that you're choosing, you have agency. You get to choose to show up well, even if it's difficult, even if it's challenging. And, now this gets to be the story that you tell other people of, this is what I learned from the way I tried to implement this previously. And if I would do it differently, this is what I would change. And, just because you're not in the ideal situation you want to be in, doesn't mean there's not opportunity for you to grow and develop.
A big thing for me, and I was in this situation where I didn't have to do best practices. I didn't even have to automate any stuff, but I made sure that I did things in the right way. One, for conscious, like I wanted to feel good. I wanted to feel good about going to conferences and stuff and actually applying it. I wanted those skills. I wanted to blog about them, but also I didn't want to get like a job offer from a place that does things properly. And I've always done things wrong. It would create a gap in my mind where I viewed myself as different. When in reality, like I can do things in the proper way, write the scripts in the right way where they could scale to 10,000 or 100,000 devices. It's just better to go about things that way, even if it's just taking care of your future and your career. But you can sell it as like, hey, we're future-proof at work, or it's going to be great. It works from all angles. Sure. Yep,
absolutely. Yeah, you don't want to build those bad habits. Like that's why I, document things, is like I don't want to build those bad habits.
Never put plain text passwords in scripts. Just don't. Even if your work, you see it all over the place, just don't. You don't want that. You don't want that. Like those bad practices. It's just especially related to security. Don't ever want to do those. Don't ever want to do those.
Yeah.
Even if where you work is just like you cut down trees and stuff, still.
Yeah, no, it really matters. And I mean, that goes back to the Git thing, is like making sure that you start practicing before you make it public. I mean, see what elements show up when you're saving just your notes. Because I know that was a thing that I was so afraid of. I was like, I don't want to leak any secrets. How do I do all of this? But that goes back to what you were saying of, working on your scripts and getting better at this on your own and developing that best practice. So that way you can trust yourself in the future and know that when you want to contribute to community tools or build your own, that you're setting an example that other people can follow.
And there's probably some community tools. Maybe it's related to some product you use that has an API. There's some opportunities in your normal workflow to find open source projects to contribute to. Even if you aren't the type who's like, I'm going to blog, if you're like totally just work hours, there's still opportunities to contribute in some light. And when you do that, you don't feel like you're the only PowerShell person at your work. Like you feel some level of validation of like, wow, I've actually contributed and collaborated with somebody who maybe has more experience in this. And is, for me, that was really big. It really made me feel like, okay, yeah, open source contributions really, they can be really impressive. They can also be kind of small and just like, oh, hey, you see a little thing here. You might as well share it so it makes it better for you and everyone else. And selfishly, I love having my name as the contributor, like on a little thing. If it's a small project and I know the person, I'm finding something I'm trying to do. I'm writing some little function that you didn't really ask for, but it might help a little bit.
Yeah, no, my neighbor, as I've been on like this like journey of developing myself more professionally, he would regularly remind me that innovation, whether that's in traditional industries, whether it's like manufacturing, medical innovations, these were all small wins on top of each other. One guy didn't just wake up one day and was like, oh, I know how to cure polio. Like this was all kinds of little contributions that started moving the needle. So even if it's just that like small function, maybe that's the thing that tips somebody else off like, oh, that function is great. So now I could also do X, Y, Z. So yeah.
So many opportunities to like do your regular work, maybe slightly tweak it in a way where you're kind of like planting a seed that could grow into something cool. You never know, but you do that enough and all of a sudden you can find yourself in really interesting places in your career where you might even be making more money. You'll have more comfort in like your ability to navigate the job market. And it's better. So
Yeah.
I always
totally.
encourage people to join that journey, but I was in the opposite boat for a long time. So I learned the hard way. I was trying to get into PowerShell for years, struggling, thought they were all way smarter. Eventually started writing scripts and like figured it out, had some resources. And then at work, I acted like I was a genius. Like I was just a code guy. We got interns. I kind of they made them do all the tickets while I did all the scripting. Was not a good vibe at all. And I realized like, this is not the right way. Like, feels good short term, I guess, but I'm creating a very unsustainable situation where I have to maintain all this code and they're not having fun. It's kind of like weird vibes. Not the right way to do it. So I turned on that internal PowerShell user group, started mentoring the people, had them write functions and start contributing. And eventually I moved on and went to a new job here at PDQ. But I was able to have things in a healthy state where I feel so great about like the work I did, the automations, the time I spent automating things. It's not dead now. Which if you don't empower someone else, it's very likely that all this hard work you're putting into things will go away. And it feels way better to go about your career in a way where you're making each place a little bit better. And it's not like this glaring hole of, we lost our PowerShell person and they wrote all the scripts and saved them just to their C drive and now they're all gone. And that's not good for sleeping at night.
Yep. No, I totally agree. I mean, and your example is similar to, in my being so excited to script everything, I've had to catch myself as being the bottleneck as well as like, I do it from the angle of being so excited of like, did you know that we could start using classes and like, how much faster is it if we do this? And recognizing that sometimes even if this isn't your intention, it can come off as intimidating to other people on your team. And even if, my script saves 5 minutes, if the person on my team is now no longer wanting to contribute to our shared repo, that 5 minutes doesn't matter anymore because now they're not using it. They're not contributing. We're not actually all rowing together. So it defeated the entire purpose. So sometimes having less effective scripts for the sake of adoption of your entire team really is the move. And looking at, you don't need, yes, your career is your own and like develop yourself, of course, but also recognize that it's being somebody you also want to work with. Even if your intention is positive, making sure that you're somebody that other people want to work with.
Yeah. It's big brain to write scripts and automation. It's galaxy brain when you empower others to write scripts and automation and create an awesome vibe where everybody's kind of happy and feels like a team. That's galaxy brain. If anybody knows the little meme, some people may not.
Yeah. Well, and also how cool, like one of the things that I was really inspired at MMS is, so Nathan McNulty, who is big in the community, and he's just so nice. And the guy is so smart. Oh my gosh, to ever be on his level. But the company that he works for, they work 32 hours a week. They have profit sharing, like all of this stuff. And he gets to work with other brilliant, wonderful people who really care about their customers. I mean, he's a consultant, but like he's one of very few consultants that I know who genuinely like isn't grinding out, thousands of hours. And if we all collectively take what we're doing in the community and be somebody that we want to work with, how cool if we all start our own companies and start making the entire industry a better place?
Absolutely. And I think that even on the shorter term scale, like more selfishly thinking, how you act and interact with your coworkers, with the community, that is your brand. Whether you want to or not, like how you act and treat others is how you are going to be seen. It's not what you say or what that's your reputation. So it's really important to take ownership of, oh crap, I'm going to be in this career for probably like 30 years, 20 years, 10 years, however old you are. You should invest in those long-term relationships, not only with just individuals, but like with the community at large. Like show that you're not just a consumer, that you're giving in some ways, even if it's just supportive. Like there's some people in the PowerShell community, they haven't written anything. They've been consistently supportive. They've asked good questions. They've shared things. There's nothing wrong with that. But you gotta have something in the world. Or at least, really great relationships with your coworkers where they're like, oh my gosh, so-and-so, wow, they just did such a great job. Totally. So yeah, I just get a lot more joy out of the career whenever you are taking it more serious and not just treating it like, I'll get another job.
Right.
All right. You had a great topic and we've kind of talked on it a little bit. We've just been vibing a little bit, but I want to make sure we cover, and it was, I want to say it the way you said it, bridging the gap between systems engineering and DevOps. So I think that what you were kind of sharing earlier, your IntuneStack is kind of a take on that. what other thoughts do you have in this space? Because I think there's so many angles of this that are so incredibly helpful. The DevOps thing in general, just the collaboration that it pushes, I think is like the core. But how are you seeing bridging the gap between systems engineering and DevOps?
Yeah. So one of the big things when I think of it just in general is genuinely starting to encourage systems engineering folks to adopt more of an infrastructure as code mindset. I think it's really easy for us to be like, well, my servers. Well, what if you actually spent time and investigated what your server is actually being used for? And the DevOps piece of why I say that is moving left and moving as close to your customer as possible and finding out, why do they even have that server? Are they just running a Python script? Like, what if that could be, Azure function, or what if it could be in an automation account? Or there's so much opportunity to kind of transform the way that you think of what you're managing. And not only does that bring you're not having to do this over and over again, but some of the things about the job that can be just frustrating, where you're constantly having the same questions over and over and over again. Well, instead, what if your HR team, when they need a group created in Entra, they're doing a pull request, and now you know that you have consistency in your naming convention and attributes, and now you can leverage your source of truth in Entra and have better security because Defender for endpoint or cloud or what have you is now populated consistently. So thinking that I've heard a lot of people who have been really nervous about the Graph API. And I'll be honest, it was challenging for me I had no experience with APIs whatsoever. And it felt like I was trying to, build the car that I needed to drive to work that morning before I got to work. But it has helped me so much to kind of think of like in more of a flattening way. And having the more DevOps mindset allows me to kind of take more ownership of my career and find more areas that I'm excited about. Like, I spend a lot of time in Terraform and Ansible now, and I just think it's so fun, and it's open source-ish. But I still get to take what I've learned from PowerShell and still use it with these platforms. So I just think that the DevOps piece kind of helps alleviate some perfectionistic tendencies that I have and I see other folks doing and making their job too hard. And it also helps alleviate kind of that scarcity mindset when it comes to, oh my gosh, if I automate this, then I'm going to be out of a job. Well, you're just showing how much more adaptable you are, and you're becoming more of an integrated member of your organization.
So it sounds like step one, shift left, seek to understand the actual problem. Don't just like do things the way you've done it. Maybe there's a better approach. Maybe it involves other people, but that's where the kind of human skills come in early on. I think a lot of people don't seek to understand. They just like begrudgingly do whatever ticket comes in. There's also this kind of notion that you're mentioning of, I guess it's like CI/CD kind of stuff in general. There's some kind of input, some stuff that you define happens to it. And then at the end, there's something. And you've mentioned pester tests. I think with IntuneStack, you can actually deploy things and get like a result on how many are successful. But as time goes on, you can refine those policies. You will have like a kind of source of truth code thing, like as code. That's what infrastructure as code means. There's like some kind of file that defines it. But also your tests over time, and tests that can maybe be reused. Like you mentioned, the naming conventions. Anything that you have in your org, its standards in any way, you can codify and validate forever going forward. Forever. You won't have to think about it. It's not the type of thing that, oh crap, I didn't have my morning coffee. I renamed it the wrong way. It's taken care of for you. Yep. So you can maybe drink less coffee sometimes. I don't know. I'm not going to, but people could.
No, I'm still going to drink just as much coffee. But yeah, no, exactly. And once you start recognizing that everything is just a pattern, and recognizing like, okay, how do I consistently call a value and how do I do something with that value? That's really all I'm doing. And that can be used in anything. I mean, my example, like earlier this year, one of the things that I did is, I love Azure Arc and I just plug it so much because it's made my life so much easier. But I really wanted to use system managed identities. And, we had some file shares that we were uploading user photos. And rather than disturbing, our HR team, I had those servers were already Arc enabled, and I made a automation account that was using a hybrid worker, and I was able to upload all of those photos very easily and completely undisturbed. And so now when we go to move that decom that server, that's fine. I can go put it, in a blob storage or whatever works for my company because I have that pattern already ready to go. And so I didn't have to do an overnight, completely re-architect everything. We'll just take what you already have, move it to a new location in the cloud, whatever works for your org, and then just slightly incrementally improve it. But that effort that I put in, now I have that pattern that I can go use again in something else.
And it applies to many different areas of IT, that kind of CI/CD thing. You're mentioning IntuneStack, the thing you shared. A lot of similar concepts can be borrowed in many different ways. Even if you're in security, you can borrow a lot of these concepts, right? Of proving new things and getting them brought in. So there's a lot of good stuff here, which I think is what is so cool about DevOps. Because whenever I started learning about it, I wasn't shipping any apps or anything like that, but I was still so influenced by the collaborative nature, the understanding of let's break down these silos. I mean, it seems so obvious now in hindsight of yeah, you should probably talk to the people you're working with and relying on.
Mm-hmm.
Probably makes sense to kind of meet in the middle and come up with some solutions. But apparently it was novel at the time. But I lean on that all the time. Whenever I have confidence about talking about collaboration at work, it is fueled by seeing what happened in DevOps, because
Mm-hmm.
there's so much money behind software and getting things shipped and all that you'd think they have some understanding of how to do it productively and efficiently. And I think that they kind of do when it comes to DevOps, at least.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, your comment about going and talking to the user, that is exactly when I first started in my career. I didn't have a background in tech. I mean, sure, I coded my MySpace, and I thought boys would think that was really cool. They didn't, still don't. But so what I was good at though was going to a user and just kind of say, hey, can you walk me through what it is that you're doing? What is the output that you need? And, I would kind of point out a couple of different things is it okay if this piece is not this specifically? And a lot of times users or, other members of the business, they're asking for that thing because they heard it one time. And maybe they had a ticket with some guy in IT, and I say guy in IT because it usually is, but who, said oh, well, we have to, I can't even think of some of the weird configurations that I've heard about, but so they're just parroting back what they heard, similar to when I go to the mechanic, I look in my notes of what's happened to my car previously and make sure that they check it. And I don't necessarily know what I'm talking about. But it's kind of the same thing here, and just see what they actually need. Because a lot of times what they're asking for is not actually what they need.
I love that too, because I learned that. And I think it's a common thing as you become more advanced in IT. When people ask for help, you're not just giving them the straight answer. You're like, wait, why? What are you actually trying to do? And I learned this is a known thing. It's called the XY problem. So xyproblem.info, it's defined in a bunch of different places, but to say it differently or generically, user wants to do X. User doesn't know how to do X, but thinks they can fumble their way to a solution if they can just do Y. User doesn't know how to do Y. They ask for help with Y. Other people try to help with Y, but are confused because Y seems like a strange problem to want to solve. They wasted a bunch of time. They figured out what X was. They gave them the proper solution. So that is just such a common problem, not just in IT. I think it is just a human thing.
Totally.
This is just our example of hey, we're mature enough to realize the pattern now. Let's try and curb it when we see it. And if you're listening to this, maybe you've remembered this, but I think eventually in your career, you'll kind of come to that conclusion that it's a very real thing that is very present. And I'm guilty of it sometimes too. It's just a thing that you can slip into if you're not very critically thinking about what you're doing.
Exactly.
All right. We talked about MMS in the past, though. I want to talk about MMS in the present. How was it last week? You gave a bunch of talks.
Yeah, I did one on some of the Git collaboration pieces. Took some inspo from what I learned at PowerShell DevOps Summit, and some of the great ways that it was explained by Gail, and made the Back to the Future reference similar to what he did, and watching how it really clicked for people was really fun, because I remember being there and having that moment oh my gosh, this makes so much sense now, and I had already been using Git quite a bit. And then we did a talk on automation that works and kind of some of the soft skills of how to actually get your team all working together and being truly collaborative and why that matters and some of the roadblocks that we've run into. My co-speaker, Matt Zaski, and myself, just talking about like all the different ways that you can run into roadblocks, and then did a couple on Intune. This one was really fun for me with Steve Weiner. He and I did one on your Intune environment isn't special, and that's a good thing. And it was talking about specifically the pattern piece of like, everybody's like, well, I need this specific thing because my users need whatever. And it goes back to well, what problem are you actually trying to solve? And try to make your environment as stable and consistent and pattern oriented as possible. And I teased IntuneStack there, actually, which is part of what kind of gave me the oomph to get it done today. I was surprised how many people were excited about this and hadn't even thought of managing their environment this way. And then the last one was just all about autopilot and just different ways that you can kind of mess it up. And again, going back to the patterns of like, hey, this is why patterns matter so much with your tagging strategy, and here's how to make sure that you catch everything. And so that's why I'm so passionate about, especially the PowerShell community, is learning those patterns and learning why it matters, that it's not arbitrary. This really does have long-term impact on not only yourself, the community, but also your organization and how reliable the enterprise actually is.
Sounds like a busy week. I'm always surprised at MMS because like there's so many sessions and a lot of them are long. So I'm like, prayers are out to you. Best of luck each day I'd see you. I was like, see you on the other side. But you did it quite well. I was impressed. It seems like such a good vibe that, I mean, it probably is really exhausting to give a talk, but it seems like more of a conversational vibe where it's maybe less just like everyone don't make a sound for 10 minutes and just walk, or for an hour as I just stare at a board. It seems more engaging than that.
Yeah. I would say the vibe in general is, we kind of try to encourage people how to kind of interact with our sessions. I've presented with Matt Call before, who is a product manager at Microsoft, and he has the slide that's kind of my favorite, where it's like, here's how you can interact with our session. And on one side it says, good ways to interact, which is like, asking questions that are on target or whatever. And then like the most excellent way. And so like kind of giving people an idea of how to interact and how to like, yes, ask some questions, but don't make it so specific about your environment. We can save that. There's plenty of extended Q&A, but the conversational piece is what I think really is what impacts people's career and really moves the needle. It definitely did for me. Like, I don't think that my career was anywhere near what it is now until I went to MMS in 2023. So, yeah.
Heck yeah. 2023 was kind of the start of your, turning things up to 11, would you say?
Yeah. Yeah. My coworker, I'm fortunate enough to have if I said this to him, he'd probably be like, oh, Hailey, knock it off. But I call him a 10X engineer because he's so smart and so nice. And he would just give me like little ideas on things to do. It was his idea to use Azure Arc, where he was like, hey, can you go see if like that would work? And, I ran with it, and he kind of gave some methodology for evaluating solutions. And we went to go to MMS together, and I had gone up to a couple of the speakers afterward and just thanked them for community tools that they had developed. And, I wouldn't have been even remotely successful with Config Manager or Intune if it hadn't been for all of the great blogs and YouTube videos that people published. And everyone was like immediately like, hey, do you want me to mentor you? Do you need any help? Do you have any questions? There's a way that this can be better. And I was just so blown away by how community focused everyone was. And so like, I just really felt like, oh, wow, I finally have an outlet for some of the ideas that, just may not be a priority for the org right now. And, that's okay. But how do I start working on this in a way that like those ideas don't die?
Yeah, I definitely noticed that there's a lot of things that I've seen from my experience with the PowerShell community. I've only been to 2 MMSs, but there is that thing we're talking about here of collaboration, of sharing, of openness, of all this good stuff that I think it has to be present in every healthy community. I think the reason, not the only reason, but a reason that I've observed for MMS, it's been going for a very long time. So there's that consistency and there's that ability to hold each other accountable, because if it's only 3 years, it's like you're not going to see the same people over and over. But if it's, consistent, you're going to have opportunities to grow together and to get feedback over time. And I think that they've probably done that. I've only seen it for a couple of years, but yeah, it's really cool. I think it's so important for people to have a community where they feel like they belong, where they feel like they have a voice, wherever that is. And it is very reassuring every single time I see that in a community, because it is not as common as I think it should be.
Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah, one thing I will say that it's been really neat to have watched kind of the rise of different folks' careers in the MMS space. And like they regularly talk about how, they came to MMS like 5, 6, 7 years ago, and now all of a sudden they're, a senior architect or what have you. And that's the value that I think community has. But they're really, really good about being super welcoming to new folks. And like that is such a huge driver that they just demonstrate through their own actions. And so it's, you can't help but be excited and want to be part of it.
Heck yes. So what's next for you? You got any conferences on the docket? Are you chilling for a little bit? I know it's been a busy year.
I'm tired, to be totally honest. Like it's October and I feel like it was just like last October. Going to be continuing to freshen up like IntuneStack a little bit more. There's a couple areas that I want to make sure it's a little bit more reliable. And then I have some more infrastructure as code type stuff that I want to release with some Terraform and Ansible things, and kind of show the difference between when you would use Terraform versus Ansible and kind of the configuration pieces. So that's when I'm kind of excited to kind of get back to some of the other projects that have been like waiting in the wings. So,
well, Hailey, there's one more segment I'm going to pivot to in just a minute here. But I got to talk about your rise, because we're talking about MMS rises, and gosh, it's been so much fun. I think I saw you, was it 2020? Was it that first MMS that you spoke at? I think it was, right?
I think it had to have been.
Beer session. And Frank was like, you got to talk to Hailey. She's awesome. You know how Frank is at nighttime. He's awesome. And I was like, okay. And then eventually we talked, and man, you are pushing the needle forward in terms of like going into new ground and making it accessible for other people in the space, which is so cool. So happy for you. So excited for the people who are going to benefit from it. How do you feel about things now? Because I know getting the MVP is kind of like oh crap, it finally happened. Like, whoa, that's wild. But now we're a little bit past that. You've probably heard some good feedback from people like, oh, I love this. I love that. Great talk. How are you feeling reflecting on the journey thus far? Because it's not over, right? You never know what the future holds, but what do you think when you look back?
Yeah, it's kind of funny. It reminds me of I remember kind of MVP stuff was not something that I really had on my radar at all. Like I planned on doing it in like 10 years. I just really thought that I would be at a point of just kind of architecture chops that I could really just bring to the table. But it's almost like the imposter syndrome is almost worse, because it feels almost like there's like a light on you. And I don't mean it in like feel bad for me, but in a genuine, like, I don't want to let other people down. And I recognize that I have a role and a responsibility to, be a good steward of the opportunities I've been given, and make sure that I'm, recognizing other people, but also making sure that I'm following best practices and challenging best practices, and making sure that the entire community is healthy and moving forward. So how I feel like, it's just like, I feel a lot of pressure, but most of it's self-imposed. I don't feel it coming from anyone else. It's entirely my own, because I have some perfectionistic tendencies that I just never really knew were there until now. So
the spotlight brings it out.
Oh yeah. Yep. You see all of the shadows that you're like, oh, cool. That's stuff I need to work on. So
that's what life is, though. There in so many ways, in PowerShell and tech and whatever, we're all just working on things, and hopefully we can get to a spot where we can work on things and be kind to others and build stuff up. So hopefully don't be a negative influence on people. But other than that, as long as you're heading in the right way, if you're listening to us right now, you're probably headed in the right direction. You may, and I'll talk to a lot of people who are in this boat, Hailey, they may be in the boat of kind of knowing about all the stuff they want to do, but not really taking action. And I've been there too. So what am I going to say? Do it faster than I did. Eventually you'll be ready, and you should take that chance, and just know that it's not as scary as you might think. It's so easy for people, and myself very much included, to overthink a lot of these things. When in reality, just send it. It's your first one. It's not your last blog post, right? That's the only reason I posted them, is because I was like, okay, first few can suck really bad, right?
Yep.
They weren't that bad, but you got to do something. And then fast forward, like you said, it could be 10 years. You started a blog. Oh, actually, I do want to start using it more. You can go back to it. Just take your time, enjoy the process. And I think it's just like a good meal. It's better with friends. You got to find some along the way. Reach out in the community.
Totally. No, I think, my friend Steve Weiner, I'm plugging him so much, but he was such an impact to me. He had kind of mentioned, like with like blog posts or YouTube channels or any of the stuff, if you haven't started, nobody's reading it right now. Nobody's watching it right now. So might as well do it. And have it be your own diary, and kind of the answers to the things that you had questions about. Because if you have the questions, somebody else probably does. And if they don't, well, great. Now we have extra documentation.
Yep. You aren't, just like your Intune environment ain't that special. Neither are you. There's other people that have a very similar perspective, maybe a similar background, maybe a different perspective, a different background, but they can appreciate how you see things, even if it's super beginner stuff. It's not architect level. Get out there and start sharing your perspective. You'll refer to your own documentation. And once you do it, like the easiest method, like the MVP of just like, hey, I technically posted up a couple bullet points. That counts. And then it's way easier to do like a proper blog post if you want to in the future, but there's no pressure to, the world is your oyster, your future, it's you. Gotta do what you gotta do.
Yep, exactly.
And you've been doing a lot. So seriously, kudos. Do I have this on check? Let's see if this works. Oh my gosh.
I need that to play at work. Like when I say like something like really poignant, and then just like, oh, maybe I should see if I have that on Zoom. That I could just terrorize my coworkers even more than I already do.
The only one I use on myself is a lot.
Yeah, I would use that a lot more often. Genuinely.
Yeah. I wish I could like plug it to the PowerShell error whenever I get one. Boom. Trigger a nice little depressing sound.
Yeah, I think it would just play constantly for me because it's a lot of trial and error. The whole like fail fast, I've really embraced it.
That's actually really good though. That really is. Fail fast. That's like life advice kind of thing. Not that you want to fail majorly, but there's nothing wrong with things going wrong. I've given talks that haven't gone great before. I've had podcast episodes where I'm super tired and not wanting to talk, and I've survived. You'll survive too. I've read terrible blog posts. I still like the people. I don't even think about it. That's just the people who you'll want to interact with in the world are not going to judge you harshly for not being where you expect yourself to be, because no one else is imposing that vision on you. Maybe there's a couple jerks, but like 95% of people, we want you to come as you are. If you're a beginner, even better, to be honest. Most of us kind of salivate at the thought of, we can see them go along their journey.
Totally. Well, and we also like want to be, it's kind of like, you want to be what you needed. And it's like, who was I? Like, I want to be the person that I needed in the community when I first started.
Exactly. That's why I do everything. So it's really cool to hear you say that. Because it's like what you can speak to authentically is your experience and what resonates with you. And maybe you can genericize them or make them more generic so they expand to a wider audience. But if you're not speaking to your perspective, it's not a spot that's, for me at least, that much fun to be in. I'd rather just be myself, and my blog posts are going to come out that way. We're not writing an encyclopedia. You're sharing your thoughts, whether it be a talk or whatever you got going on. So, well, we're going to have to check out your socials, which is at always hype, at alwayshype.com on Blue Sky. I'll have a link to everything in the show notes. Are you active on, I do see you on LinkedIn, but is that your most active platform?
LinkedIn is definitely not. I'll be honest, like I get like kind of tired of LinkedIn, and I constantly am having to mute different things and
really long posts. Yeah.
And it's kind of like, I don't know, it just like kind of feels weird to me. I probably need to get over myself. Like that's probably the theme of this entire talk. But I would say I'm most often on like Blue Sky. Like I go on Twitter, but it's like become such a cesspool. So I usually cross post, but definitely on Blue Sky the most. And I would really love to see that take off more than it has.
At alwayshype.com on Blue Sky. A phrase that I've said and have had multiple listeners reach out like, oh, that was so helpful for me, is and maybe you can speak to this as you've gone through your journey and kind of taken some risks. To cringe is to grow. To do that cringy stuff, it's like, oh my gosh, I had to write a bio about myself. I had to post something self-promo. Like, you kind of have to, both inside work, you got to share your wins, also publicly. For me, my instinct to both of those is absolute cringe.
Oh yeah, no, that's I hate writing about myself. I hate like promoting myself. And I would say, like, not to make this like a gendered issue, but there's not a ton of women in this space, and it's really intimidating in a lot of ways because I don't want people to look at me as though it's like, oh, Hailey, she thinks that because she's a woman, she gets special treatment. I want to first be seen as an engineer. I want to first be seen as a community member. I want to first be seen as somebody who's trying to make a difference for other people's lives, and I don't want gender to come into it at all. And so having to remind myself that those promos and like reminding people that I'm here and that I'm contributing and doing these things, I want it to be easier for women after me. I want it to be a more collaborative space. And and also reminding myself, like, nobody else is in my brain knowing why I built this and, what key elements of this matter so much, and where I want it to go. Like, if I don't say that, sure, you could kind of figure it out just like looking at everything, but the actual impacts and the why and like the reasoning, like that, those are the things that I try to think about when I'm self-promoting and cringing as I do it, and just like trying to type as fast as I can and just like hit send. Oh well, okay, new thing.
Absolutely, yeah, I could definitely relate to it. Every single time I do that intro, it's like, all right, let's get ready for it. Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode.
Well, I mean, it works, and it's like important. And then also those like self promos, like, it's so funny. You have to have your tagline and things that people remember you by, and that can grow and change and evolve. But it's, I don't know. It's uncomfortable, but life's uncomfortable. So do I want it to be because I'm growing in an area, or do I want it to be uncomfortable because life's happening to me? I would rather, be happening to it. So.
Wisdom right there. Absolutely. Let's be proactive. We don't want to be reactive. Same IT concepts. We're applying that to personal growth now. But that's the truth about patterns. Like, for me, true stuff is truthful. It can be applied to IT, but that pattern goes outside of IT as well. It applies to pretty much everything.
Yep. This is all global things. Like, we should be authentic in all areas of our lives. And I mean, that's not to say that like everybody needs to know like every nitty gritty detail about me in every space I'm in, but the theme of how I show up should be the same.
Yep. And in doing that, it creates that freedom for others. Like, I'm a little bit weird. I don't try and hide it too much, because I think it does create a little bit of space for other people to not be like, and I guess I am a little bit generic in a lot of ways, but I'm a little weird too.
Yeah. I mean, that's where my handles came from. Cause like people were like, man, you're like always hyped about everything. And I'm like, I am just like overly caffeinated all the time. And I think it just became a personality for me. So yeah.
Yeah, I can relate to that. I've had people ask like, hey, you do cocaine before these? Like, why are you so excited?
Oh my gosh. People have asked me that too. And I'm like, no. Is it third party independently tested? Well, then that's a no for me, dog.
That's what
also, can you imagine if I did that? That would be the worst thing ever.
My risk tolerance is so low. If it's not legal and I can't know every single thing about it, you're probably going to either have done it in a different life, but not this one.
Yep. Same. Yeah. Very risk averse.
Yeah, exactly. It's just, well, I learned about it on IT, right? Everything's a risk-based decision. That's your bottom dollar. I'm wearing a helmet on that bike. I'm sorry.
Oh, absolutely. Every time. Absolutely. Of course.
Could fall over. You never know. All right. Well, the last segment I wanted to bring up, because, I know I've seen you at a couple conferences. We've had a couple chats. I know a little bit about you. In fact, I know that you are a lover of music. So this is our music segment. Ching.
I didn't know you did this.
Oh, I don't do this. I just decided to do this right now.
Oh, it's special just for me. Okay,
yes,
great.
It is. Yeah, not everybody loves music. I'll ask them like, what's your favorite song? But you have some experience. So we're going to start with favorite album that you're passionate about, not for everyone to like, but just you kind of maybe guilty listening or maybe just recently been vibing to it. What's an album?
I would say that I like no skips, Dayseeker, Dark Sun. Dayseeker, Rory Rodriguez's voice, like I've never heard a voice that can just be so soft and like beautiful, but also like the screams that he has are just like so guttural. I'll tell people right now, I'm like, metalcore, new metal, post-hardcore, pop punk, like that's my space. And so, like a good scream and growl in there is like really important to me. So he just conveys so much emotion, and I listen to it all the time. And then he has this fun, like almost synthwave vibe in there as well. They're incredible.
Sweet. I'll have to check that out.
But New also Lincoln, because you're in Florida, a day to remember goes hard all day, every day. Like I will never not listen to a day to remember.
That is very fair. Yes. You can't really go too many days in Florida without seeing a day to remember shirt. So,
I mean, I have my tattoo is a day to remember. So.
Oh, that's sick.
Yeah.
Heck yes. Well, I'm glad I brought up this segment. Next question. Linkin Park, modern Linkin Park, new singer, yay or nay?
Okay. If other people love it, I won't yuck their yum. It's not for me at all, for lots of reasons.
The screams?
I think that, when Chester passed away tragically, I think that it should have transitioned into a different band. And I think there's a lot of controversy about the lead singer that gives me pause. So I wish there was a way on Spotify that I could block anything new and only let me listen to old stuff. So yeah.
Yeah, maybe we cut that question. I don't want any ties to Scientology.
That's fair. I was like,
never mind. I forgot about that.
No, you could ask me again, and I'll just say I through and through, I'm classics. It's This is my
favorite Linkin Park song.
Probably Given Up. Yeah, that's I listen to it all the time. It's my gym song. It's when I'm dealing with anything at work.
What about during work, you're listening to songs with lyrics?
Oh yeah. I'm usually listening to I'm not doing full blown analysis of albums and stuff,
right,
but
listening in the background a little bit.
Yeah. Oh, not even in the background. It's just it's screaming into my ears because I'm a millennial. How you got to feel your feelings in in a healthy way, and that's screaming music just hits the itch just right, and you get into rage coding, and it's the best.
Can't argue with that. No geeky music. No I listen to music for programming whenever I code.
Mm-hmm.
You do?
What's music?
Oh, music for programming.net. It's just
I've never even heard
kind
of
of background music ish with ambient-ish with beeps and bloops, and it's not music. It's more let you kind of focus.
Oh,
I don't know.
Yeah, no, I need I need intensity when I'm focusing, because it's that. Sometimes I do ambient music, but not very often.
I'm sometimes I'm let's go.
Yeah.
And otherwise I'm just,
yeah.
Brown noise. Well,
yeah, totally.
That has been our music segment. Thank you, Hailey.
I think it's so cool that you did that. I feel very special.
I'm just trying to mix things up, It's October. Yeah. I'm feeling spooky. We're just going to try new things. I don't know. The intro I did today was a little weird. Usually whenever I do those silly intros, what did I say? I was a little goofier than normal. A lot of times what I'll do with a guest is I'll be super weird in the first intro just to break the ice, make him feel what is he doing? And then I'll do another intro that's normal. But I kind of rocked with the slightly weird one this time.
Yeah, no,
just throw people off base.
Yeah,
kind of leaving typos. I like a little typo here and there. I'm not going to lie. If I see a typo, I don't always fix it these days. It's a different world we're living in. You got to know it's from me.
I mean, that's fair. I mean, it's kind of the whole M-dashes thing. I get so paranoid that people think that I used AI for it, which I do use it where I'll have it help me write out a help or documentation or whatever. But I'm well, I did use M-dashes before now. I don't want people to think that I really paid attention in school. So
I didn't.
Well,
but I read the internet.
Some of us,
very hard.
Yeah, some of us are tryhards, and that's not necessarily a good thing. So
I like classes if they're hard. But if you give me an easy class, why would I pay attention?
Right, exactly. It's this isn't challenging at all. Yeah.
That's why you don't want to be a point and click admin, because it's just not that much fun.
Exactly. Well, you can't build cool.
True. You can't. So. And you don't get to build for a future much. You know, you don't get to build for a better tomorrow. It's just okay, tomorrow's going to be maybe worse than today.
Yeah, that
Every
seems to be
day.
the theme of this year.
Well, boom! Another episode of the PowerShell Podcast. That's at Always Hype on social medias. Blue Sky's probably the best one, at alwayshype.com. And you can go to the website, alwayshype.com. You can check out IntuneStack and links to a whole bunch of stuff, maybe even links to some music. Come up with any others. I'll include links to those as well. But Hailey, final message for the people. We've had quite the wrap up. I think people know you quite well by the end of this episode. They get a feel for your vibe, what your passions are, what you're trying to push forward this year. But final message for the people out there.
Just start where you are. And just, even if it's just 10 minutes a day, just do 10 minutes a day of looking at your code and just making it better, and don't be a perfectionist.
Did you want to give a shout out to anybody out there that should reach out to you in particular? Are there any people you're looking to mentor or anything like that currently?
If there's women, particularly, like, sorry boys, there's so many mentors for you. But I think that that's an area that, like, I'd really love to see more women in this space and more women feeling comfortable, because they bring a different perspective, and it's nice to have more representation.
Definitely. I have a couple of friends I will send your way after this, but definitely reach out to Hailey if you're looking to connect. Even if you're not looking for like a mentorship type thing, it's always great to meet new people of all different types who maybe share a similar perspective or similar struggles with you. So boom, everybody. It's all about the people. That's the TLDR of today's episode. Yeah, there's a lot of cool tech stuff, but at the end of the day, it's about you, your team, making sure that you can get enjoyment out of life, fulfillment, automation, all the good things. Hailey, thank you so much for joining us. It's been a long time coming, but we did it.
Yeah, no, definitely. I was like glad to not do a, overdrink session with the bad audio.
Hey, I won't link to it in the show notes. If people follow it, they find it.
Fair.
What am I supposed to say? Some other stuff here. Oh yeah, PowerShell Wednesdays. Every single Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern, I host a PowerShell meetup. We talk about PowerShell. We learn some things. We have some fun. Every single Monday, we got one of these PowerShell podcasts. I think we're almost at 300. I don't know what number we're on, Hailey. I think maybe 298. Wait, is it 300? 200? I don't know.
Yeah, you guys are getting really, really close. I share so many of your videos. Like, that was probably the craziest thing at MMS, is how many people didn't know. Like, there were so many people in the PowerShell community that I was like, go look at this repo, go look at this, like, check all of this out. And people are like, wait, I didn't know people were doing this. I'm like, there's so much for you to do. So yeah.
Well, you got to get connected to the community. There's just too many easy wins out there to have. Like, it's not like this long-term play where you think about your future in 10 years, you have these friends. It's like, no, you kind of go now and you like kind of say something, and you might find a module that does exactly what you're trying to do, or a blog that solves it. That's not really findable on Google because like the person didn't do SEO. It's just like a blog personally. A lot of easy wins. Yep.
Totally agree.
All right, everybody. Well, thank you. I've kept you here long enough. Walk safe, drive safe, take care of yourself, take care of your loved ones, learn PowerShell, take your next step. Listen to Hailey. I mean, whatever she says, she's doing the right things. Follow her example and do your next thing. And until next time, everybody, Hailey, thank you so much for joining me. I'm going to have to get you on. Ask you live so you can't say no. Until next time.
Thanks for listening to the PowerShell Podcast. The PowerShell Podcast is a PDQ production, making device management simple, secure, and pretty damn quick.